All right, so let me start this. As some of you all know, Keith Pugh, W5IU, passed away a year ago, and he willed us all his amateur radio equipment, and one of the items was his Flex 6500. And the Flex 6500 is it's a computer radio on steroids. It's quite the machine. But by itself, there isn't any radio to it. There aren't any knobs or anything like that. There's an on-off switch. As far as access, how you control it, it's all over the software on your computer. And I'm going to switch this to lecture mode, and that means everyone's going to be muted but me. But if you hit your hand thing, then I can unmute you to ask questions. So I'm going to go through a little bit. I'm going to kind of walk through things or how things are, but this isn't a lesson. This is more like eye candy to get your attention, get you motivated to try something new. But let me switch the mode. All right, so when you first start out, you have a box, that's the radio, and then you have some icons when you install the software. And this is the entirety. I think you should still see my screen, yeah. These three icons are the entirety of what the radio needs. And really, for most people, all you'll need is this icon, which is Smart SDR. The other two involve cat control the radio and the audio transport. And those two, if you're using digital modes, you have to use that. But for just using the radio for audio, Smart SDR. So when you first start the software, and right now the radio's not on. And I'll open up on the other screen. So you first start the software, you just get some blank windows. And the reason for that is the radio is designed to be used remotely, and it's designed you can use multiple radios remotely. And that's the whole background. So basically, everyone using it is using it remotely. Even though I'm right here sitting next to it, I'm still using it remotely. So right now, I turn the radio on, and it goes through a calibration process. It's got a couple of computer processors, some other things going on, and it's trying to make sure it's got the most stable frequency it can. This particular radio is, and I'm going to get the terminology wrong, but I want to say it's called direct conversion or direct sampling radio. So essentially, the airwaves come in, is directly computerized, and then the radio handles that computer image from that point on. As opposed to other digital radios that in the past have sampled the IF. So it take your regular IF signals, it down converts, and then takes that IF and plays with it. In this case, it just uses the straight signal straight to the computer. So I mentioned these two, DAX and CAT, we're not going to need. But once the radio came online and it gave its green light that says I'm happy to go, it shows up. If you're on the network, it doesn't. You notice I'm not logged in on this one. If you're on the same network, the radio shows up. The radio has the ability to talk to, again, open the wrong screen, has the ability to have two users on it. And there's a whole lot of caveats, but you could have two different people using the radio at the same time. The first caveat is that there's only one receive antenna in use at any time. So if you have a nice multi-band antenna, then both people using it are using that same multi-band antenna to receive, and then you're transmitting on whatever's appropriate. So it has two transmission connections, but only has one. Well, the way I say this, sounds like there's only one antenna connection for reception. You can use either. There's two antenna screw-in positions on the radio, and you can use either one for reception, but only one at a time. So everyone uses the one or the other, if that makes sense. The radio looks at, or the terminology they talk about, is just pulling in this data. They call it a slice. And I'm going to give you the first bit of eye candy right now. Right now I'm on the 20-meter band. I'm not sure how detailed the screen is, but this is the software they use. But if I take my mouse here and I drag this mouse and hope we don't crash it, but you can see down there at the bottom is 7 megahertz, and up here is 20 megahertz. On my little 20 meter antenna, it's not picking up much on 20 megahertz. But you can see all this eye candy, all this sampling. That's everything that the radio is picking up off my antenna. All those bands from 5 megahertz up to 15 or so. So that's your eye candy. But I don't need all that if I crash it. And the reason I show you that is this shows you that it's always trying to sample the entire spectrum. And there's a number they give, and you'd have to look at the manual to see exactly what that number is. But a large spectrum, you can have display at the same time, and it's trying to decode it. Now, if you have it spread out like that, it's obviously tasking the unit. But you can kind of see that if you had two different radios or two different computers using the same radio, you can be entirely at different ends of the spectrum and still getting the same spectrum display. So right now, what we're looking at, this is slice A. I mentioned the radio has one, it's called a direct, what's it called? I want to say direct sampling converter, but that's not the right word. It has one of those, and it has 4 slices per sampling converter. So if we had the next step up radio, it's got 2 of those converters, and that would have 8 total slices. We've got 4 slices. That means I have reception right there. I just added one. I could have reception there. Where else? I could have reception there, and I could have reception there. So all those are being received right now. All those signals. If they're audio signals, yeah, that's out of band. But if they're audio signals, I could listen to them. That's the maximum capability of radio, is just 4 slices. If there's 2 people using it, 2 different computers on it, then now they have to share those 4 slices. So maybe one gets 1, the other gets 3, or probably the best plan is 2 on 2. Now you go, now why do I need 4? I can only listen to 1. Right now the reception is really crummy. It must be a lot of background noise. But let me zoom in a bit. I like digital radio. I like doing the digital modes. And I can do multiple digital modes at the same time as well as listen to audio. So for example, up here I could have, wow, it is really quiet right now. That's interesting. All week long, this thing has been filled up. I guess all the weather moved on, so it got quiet. But I could have this just listen to the audio, and I could have digital down here being decoded and doing this thing. So that's kind of what this can do. It can handle all bands, everything else. There's some limits in the manual, but essentially it's all bands. It comes down to the antenna we have for it. There's some how to word this. The radio will let you do bad things. So if you look up here, there's 2 antenna marks. The first one is the audio, what we're using to decode for this display, and the other one's the transmission. It'll let you select whatever you want. So you can select a different antenna, and if it's out of band, it'll attempt to transmit on it. It has some what we call reverse voltage measuring, and it can handle a certain amount of high SWR reverse voltage, but it's not to be relied on. You don't want to just hammer your own transmitter with a bad signal. So you kind of have to know what it's doing. And I know this from example. When I was first testing it out, I had dummy load on one antenna port. I had my 20-meter antenna on the other one, and for some reason I couldn't get digital contacts. Well, it's because even though I was receiving, decoding nicely, it was trying to transmit through the dummy load. Now, luckily, I had the dummy load attached, but you can see I easily get into trouble. So I'll leave this for now. I'm going to show you what the other parts do, and then why, what the whole is. And like I say, if you're just using just want to listen to audio, there is a place for that, but it really shines when you start doing digital stuff. So right now you can see that it hasn't logged into it, So I'll start with DAX. And DAX is the audio transport. Like I say, don't need it for voice. And for voice, I can just use PC audio. And I don't know if you can hear that, but whatever's coming through, you can do that. As well as the radio itself has plugins for speakers and headsets. So when you open up, when DAX logs into the radio, you get something like this. And what this is telling you is there's 4 slices. And right now, I'm getting audio off one slice right there, the one that's open. And so I got 4 different audio streams coming in. And this is important because Windows can't handle audio coming in on this regular audio jack. It just can't do it. And anyone's trying to do digital modes with their computer, there's always a bit of jumping through hoops, making sure the right thing is connected to the right thing. This is just happily sending that audio to this slice. You just have to point your software package to that slice, and it's going to receive it. So let me show you, for example, my go-to toy, WSJTX. So I got to make sure this is set, that's sampled. I think it's already set correctly. We'll see. Yeah. So you see right there, it automatically switched the radio to what WSJTX wanted to use. It's receiving something in there. There you go. We're already getting some signals. And how I know I got DAX channel 1, which is this one, channel 1, and my this thing says channel 1. Very simple. Everybody's happy. So I've got DAX going. Well, let's see what else is here. Let me make one more setting. Ignore this part. All right, so I've got the second slice up here. This is an instruction. I'm just kind of showing you what it can do. And I need radio control, but I already started up when I did this. So that's the cat port part. And here's the second part that's always difficult with using Windows and software and trying to control the radio, is you have your one thing plugged in, and then Windows starts deciding what goes where. Well, the radio itself decides what goes to what comm channel. So it already created all these comm channels in the radio. These 2 are push-to-talk ones, and these are just your cat, right? So cat commands are your modes and your frequencies, right? That's cat stuff. Push-to-talk is the push-to-talk, and some software requires something different. So I've got that listened to, I think it's FT8. Now, I know there's nothing out here because the signals are so bad, but maybe you like FL Digi and want to try to find something. So FL Digi, I'm got double checking. It's on slice B. There's actually software for it. COM6. Trying to do this on one screen is very challenging. COM6, which is slice B, so it's happy there, and he's a PTT button. COM7, slice B. All right, so it is all happy. So this, now, on slice B here, I can just spin the dial through FL Digi. So if there's some digital signal in here that I could pick up, I'd be able to decode it right now. Now, I don't know what's out here. I've had limited success trying to decode CW, and I can't ever find who's doing whatever modes. But that's just to show you what that part could do. So right now, those 2 things are going away. Well, maybe I want to hear some audio. So now I could drag out that other one. If there was a signal out here, actually, maybe that's a signal. If there was a signal out here, I could be listening to that also. That's outside our band. I don't know what that is. So that's kind of the the horsepower behind it. And here's where it gets so complicated. Be like, where do I start? If you just want to make a radio transmission, then you don't need that. You don't need that. You don't need that. You don't need that slice. I don't need that slice. That's all I need is the one audio, if there was audio right there. And I can't believe, I can't believe there's no audio going right now. Anyway, so here's where you get the limitations of what we have. The radio itself actually has a mic. So you have a regular push-to-talk mic. It's got plug-ins if you have a desk mic or a foot switch to do push-to-talk. But if you're on a remote station, not sitting at the radio, then all you have is buttons. It's the only way I could transmit is by pushing that button right there. So that's a limitation. There's no way to do CW right now directly using a keyer on this thing. You can type in CW, and it's even built in right here. You can put in, where's that? You can put in your pre-made calls, right? Your CQ, and all this other stuff through there, and your 73 at the bottom, and you can just push your function keys on your keyboard, and you can send all this stuff, and you can decode on your own. But you can't use a regular keyer if you're remote. If you're plugged into the radio, yes. In fact, if you look, I switched this to CW. Does it show it? It didn't do it. Sometimes it'll do it correctly, but it actually changes to the controls for the your different kinds of keyers, iambic or whatever else, and it's all, you set it up all in there. I've had it pop up every once in a while. But for other than voice, or if you're just keying right next to the radio, this is all you need, just this one screen. I'm not going to get into, like I said, any more detail than this, so at this point I'm just going to answer questions because I can't teach it if you don't have experience in software radio, and it has to be a one-on-one thing. So I'm going to take this off lecture mode. So now, I'm sure a few of you recognize some of the stuff, and a few of you are like, what? So go ahead with some questions if you have any.
K5 Wi-Fi.
What's that?
This Dave. Question.
Go ahead.
You're way up. Can you put a slice on 40 and monitor 20 at the same time?
What was the frequency?
Monitor 7074 and about 425 for Charlie Whiskey. You're way out of the band. That's why you're not hearing anything.
No, actually, the radio, the antenna set up for 20 meters, so I should have been hearing it. But
you were at 15. You were at 15 meg.
Well, I had the whole thing. I had the whole spectrum up. So the slice is actually at 14 something. I'm just saying there weren't any of these spikes up there at 20 meters. That's what I was saying. That's how I didn't hear anything. So what do you want?
Go down to 7074 and listen to the digital down there.
As you can, just type them in.
Yep.
Yeah, it looks like that's all digital through here. It's CW.
Go down lower for CW.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, the antenna right now is set for 40 meters or 20 meters. I don't know why it's receiving so well on 40, but that's where we're at. So one big question ought to be, how do I use it remotely? Well, the problem is, first it requires network work at the clubhouse, and the second part is, as you can see, it's easy to set something up and transmit without an antenna or something like that. So we have to figure out a way to solve that problem. And there's no way, for somebody to monitor, like somebody can be recorded at one location and somebody else is transmitting. It's impossible because the way it's set up is that the two different computers on it are seeing different information. Now, there's some tiny caveats with that, but I'm not going to cover that. Basically, you get two people doing stuff and no idea what the other person's doing. And you can try to transmit without an antenna connected unless you know physically that the antenna is connected correctly. So for right now, we use it in the clubhouse, and it's going to take, depending on your background, it's going to take a couple one-on-one sessions to figure out how to use the thing and get any good out of it. And I spent hours working on it. What else?
Is this going to be ready to go at the clubhouse?
Eventually.
Okay.
Once we start getting